Ciao pandas! This is going to be a different video. You see, here on PolyglotPanda, I teach you Spanish, as you know, through movies, shows, series, and I never talk about myself. First, because I don't like to. Second, because I want this channel to be focused on Spanish. That's why we are here, right? And all my videos is about learning Spanish. But as a teacher and as a polyglot, basically what I'm doing with my students is I'm teaching them Spanish through my own method. As a polyglot, I speak 5 languages. I have learned all those languages by myself, and I've got my own method of learning languages. It's not better or worse than any other method, it's just my own method. And I help my students to reach their goals with Spanish with my method. So somehow, sharing my way of learning languages may help you to learn Spanish as well. And that's why I decided to record this video in the first place. In this video, I'm going to tell you a little bit about my language goals for this year, how I'm going to achieve it, how I'm going to do it, and hopefully you are going to learn a little bit more about my method and how to approach your learning of Spanish. As I said, I don't feel very confident talking about my personal life and the way I structure my day and how I keep my productivity, etc. here on YouTube. So if you find that this kind of videos are helpful to you, if at the end when you watch this video you go like, oh, I have learned a lot of things about how can I approach my Spanish learning, let me know down there in the comments. You say, Jose, please keep doing this, and I will do more. If you don't say anything, probably I won't, because this is just a trial. I'm testing right now. I'm testing you. So enough chit chat. That's enough. Let's get into today's topic. This year, 2023, I've got mainly 3 language goals. As you know, currently I speak 5 languages. I was born with 2. I was born with Spanish and Valencian language. Those are my mother tongues. And then I learned by myself English, then Italian, then Esperanto. My English is quite good, as you can tell. I've got a C1 level. I don't have any plans of improving or working on my English. I'm fine. Basically because I work with my English. I practice my English every single day with my beginners students. I need to teach them Spanish using English. So enough with English so far for this year. Italian. My Italian is quite good. I have a B2 level in Italian. I would like to turn that B2 level into a C1 so I can fully feel kind of native with Italian. Then my second goal would be turning Esperanto from a B1 to a C1 as well. Esperanto is a language that I manage, I can speak, but I'm far from feeling comfortable with the language. I want to turn that into a C1. And then finally, I want to learn a whole new language, which is French. I want to go from absolute beginner, not even A1, like nothing at all, to a B1 level at the end of this year. So let's get started with my Italian. As I told you, my goal with Italian is to go from a B2 level to a C1 level in 4 months. Around April, May, kind of there, to get a C1 level. You may think that that's not difficult. Basically just one level from B2 to C1. It's just a level. It is very difficult. If you have learned a language, probably you're learning Spanish. If you're here, you will know that the early stages of a language, such as A1, A2, B1, is not that difficult. It is difficult, but it's a different kind of difficulty, if that makes sense. On the early stages of learning a new language, it has not much to do with the amount of information that you collect. That is, the amount of words that you know, the expressions or the conjugations. It has more to do with understanding. If you are an English speaker and you're learning Spanish, for example, of course there's a lot of new words you need to learn. Table, mesa, wall, pared, light, luz. There's plenty of words. But that's not the difficulty when you're an absolute beginner. It's way more difficult to understand the logic of the language. For example, it's way more difficult for your English brain to understand that a table is feminine than table equals mesa. Because table equals mesa is just a concept. And conceptual learning is not that difficult. The other kind of learning, which is mesa table is something feminine for some reason, because it makes no sense. A table has no vagina, so why the hell is feminine? Let's start with that. Okay, let's accept the table is feminine. But now when I use table, I need to think about the article being feminine, la mesa, and I need to think about the adjective being feminine, la mesa bonita. All that's not conceptual learning, that's not concept. That is a whole understand, like a meta learning of the language, if that makes sense. And this is not that difficult. It just takes a little bit of practice, well, a lot of practice, until you finally get into your mental structure how the language works. But when you get to an advanced level, such as B2, C1, C2, there's nothing to be understood. It has nothing to do with understanding the logic of, the logic of the language. What's left to be learned is a huge amount of concepts, words in the dictionary, words that you will ever probably use, right? Plenty of words that are native, plenty of words that are formal, plenty of words that if you're lucky, you will use once in your lifetime. Take Spanish, for example. When you get to a C1 level, an advanced level, you're supposed to master the future of subjunctive. That's a verbal tense. Probably you have never heard about this one, but if you have heard about future of subjunctive, it's a verbal tense that first we don't ever use, and even more, if you go here in Spain and you stop someone random on the street, excuse me, Spanish person, do you know what's future of subjunctive of verbo bailar? The person is going to look at you like, what? And you're supposed to know that when you study a C1 or a C2 level of Spanish. So basically what I'm trying to tell you is that getting a high level of the language, the jump from an A1 to an A2 can be done quite fast. The jump from a C1 to a C2, it's hard as That seems like I'm justifying myself, right? I'm gonna get my Italian from B2 to C1, but it's too difficult, so please forgive me if I don't get it. So how I'm going to do it, how I'm going to reach my goal of getting a C1 level in Italian in just 4 months. Basically, I'm going to first follow my work plan. I'm gonna create my work plan. My work plan is something that I create with all my students. In this video, I'm gonna talk a lot of things about my own methodology. If you're just a normal YouTube subscriber, you're not going to know what I'm talking about. If you are related to me, if you're one of my students, or you have been in any of my master classes, or you've been somewhere related with me, you will know what I'm talking about. Don't worry, if you have any questions, down there on the comment section, I will reply you as soon as possible. So the work plan is the very first thing I do with my students, okay? When someone asks me to help them with their Spanish, the first thing we do is we deconstruct the language and we create a work plan so they know exactly what they need to do from Monday to Sunday to achieve their goals, okay? So basically I'm going to create my own work plan. Technically I'm not going to create it because I already have it from when I was studying Italian. I'm going to update it and I'm going to work 1 hour every day, 3 days per week. That is 3 hours per week. That is not a lot, it's not little either. It's a good amount of time to get my goal of jumping from a B2 level to a C1 in just 4 months. That basically means that I'm going to work 3 hours per week on my Italian of real work, okay? If you have been taking classes with me, you know that listening to the Spanish radio while I'm driving, that's not working. Reading Harry Potter before I go to bed, that's not working. Watching La Casa de Papel on Netflix when I finish working, that's not working. The way I'm going to structure those 3 hours per day is I'm going to use these percentages. Again, if you know nothing about my method, you're gonna be like, percentages, what, math? Ah! Again, I'm not gonna tell you a lot of things about my method because we don't have time, but basically what we do is first we need to decide how much time we've got to achieve our goal, in my case 3 hours per week. But then the second thing is deciding how much time we're gonna spend on each one of the 7 features of the language. Basically, the 7 features of the language are the 7 skills that we need to work on if we want to get fluent in a language, okay? The 7 features of the language, it's something that all my students know and master. We've got listening, reading, writing, speaking, fluency, pronunciation, and vocabulary. Quick piece of advice for you. If you're learning Spanish and you are not working every single one of these 7 features of the language, listening, reading, writing, speaking, fluency, pronunciation, and vocabulary, good luck with that. Because either you will ever speak Spanish fluent, or it will take you so much time that you will get unmotivated in the meantime. So my percentages for Italian are going to be 25% speaking, 25% writing, 20% listening, 15% reading, 10% fluency, and 5% pronunciation. If you sum all these numbers, you're going to see that that is 100%. That is that out of all the work I'm going to do on my Italian during the next 4 months, I'm gonna work a quarter of my time on my speaking skills, a quarter of my time on my writing skills, a fifth part of my time on my listening skills, a 15% of my time on reading skills, etc, etc. You know, you see how this goes, right? The reason why I chose speaking and writing to be basically half of my work is because I can create quite well my Italian. I can speak quite fluent Italian. In fact, I speak too fluent Italian. Sometimes I speak too fast, like right now, it happens the same with my English. I speak too fast English. So sometimes I speak faster than I think. The reason this happens is because I did a huge mistake when I was learning English and when I was learning Italian, and is that I focused too much on my fluency skills. So that means that I worked too hard on the ability to speak fast English and fast Italian, and I did not spend that much time as I should learning how to speak better. So that doesn't mean that I cannot speak good Italian or good English. Right now you can understand me, I speak good English, but my English is not as good as fast I can speak. So that means that I can speak faster than I can think. It takes more time for me to process the information than to just throw the words out of my mouth. So that means that either or I improve my speaking skills, I improve my ability to speak better English, or I slow down my English. And that's something I've been trying to do, but it's freaking hard. So I'm gonna try to do now this on my video. I'm going to speak a little bit slower, but thinking everything I say. Let's go. So again, this is the reason it feels weird to speak this slow. This is the reason why speaking and writing are on the top of my list, because basically I need to practice the ability to speak better Italian, to create better Italian, never mind if it's with my voice or with my hand by writing, okay? When I speak Italian, I speak too fast and I make a lot of mistakes. That's why fluency is only 10% of my time, because I already have a lot of fluency. For the flashcards, for the vocabulary, I'm going to keep going with my flashcard app called RemNote. It's a software that allows you to take notes, create flashcards, and review those flashcards with the spaced repetition system, which is, as if you are my student or you've been my student or you're somehow related to me, you know that I never emphasize enough how important it is to have a flashcard system with the spaced repetition system on it. The spaced repetition system is by far one of the key points of learning a new language, by far. And then about the resources that I'm going to use, writing and speaking is just me. I'm going to create things in Italian, so I don't need any resources. For listening and reading, for reading, I'm gonna keep reading some books that I've got in Italian that are quite interesting for me. Da studenti imprenditori, I giganti della comunicazione, they are not famous books. In fact, they are books. They are both are the CEOs of a company of one of my Italian students that learned Italian with me, Andrea. He was one of my best students. He learned Spanish so fast and so well because he was such a good student, and he was working in a company, and the CEOs were Giuseppe, what was the name? Giuseppe whatever? Don't remember the name. Giuseppe Moriello and Andrea Concia. He told me, my student Andrea told me about these books. They are not the best books in the world, but they are quite interesting. They are about entrepreneurship and companies and communication and marketing. So I like the topic. I'm gonna keep reading them. And then for the listening, I'm going to go step by step, going from easier to more difficult. I'm gonna start with what I love, which is Disney, Pixar. Then I'm gonna jump to an Italian show, which is not especially good, but I don't know, it's kind of fun, which is Don Matteo. It's quite an old Italian show, but it's quite funny, to be honest. It's about a priest who helps the police solve some mysteries. It's nice. So I'm gonna watch that one after I get used to the Disney movies, etc, etc. And then finally I'm gonna jump to my final stage of difficulty, which is going to be my absolute favorite movie in the whole world, which is La Vita è Bella di Roberto Benigni. I've got passion for that movie. I've seen it like 1,000 times in Spanish. I've watched it several times in Italian. Roberto Benigni is an Italian actor. I don't know if you know him, but he's probably the fastest speaker person in the world. I mean, he can turn this huge sentence into it's incredible, and he modulates the voice so much. He goes down and oh my god, I don't even know how Italian people can understand him.
Questa la devi pigliare 4 volte al giorno, te lo devi ricordare. Con un coltello si taglia ora non ce l'ho qui. Comunque col naso, vieni, pigliala. Poi puoi mangiare quanti dolci vuoi. E poi lo devi vedere, pigliala, che dopo ti va a fare colazione.
Of course, I'm not criticizing his Italian. I mean, I love him as Italian person. I love his performances. La Vita è Bella is a film where he is the protagonist. He's the starring role, but also he's the director. It's his movie, and that's a masterpiece. So I really love Roberto Benigni. I love him as an Italian person, as an artist creator, as a director, as an actor, and I love his personality, his way of looking at the life, his way of approaching life is just amazing. This is what he did when he won the Oscar for the best foreigner movie with La Vita è Bella. This is what he did in the Oscars.
And the Oscar goes to Roberto!
So enough with Italian. We are in May. We have already gotten a C1 level in Italian. And now we're gonna work on our Esperanto. Esperanto, I don't know if you know about it. I'm not gonna tell you the whole story about Esperanto. Esperanto is a man-created language. That means that it's not natural. It's not one of those languages that have been developing through history. I'm speaking fast again. I'm gonna slow down a little bit. Come on. So for example, Italian, Spanish, Romanian, Portuguese, French come from Latin, English, German, Norwegian, they all come from the Anglo-Saxon root, Chinese, Taiwanese. There's always roots, and you can trace the root and the history of a language, right? We call them natural languages. Then we've got languages that are non-natural, languages created by the human. Usually you find them in science fiction. For example, Parcel, the language in Harry Potter. Languages from The Hobbit, Lord of the Rings, those kind of languages, the one on Star Trek, all those languages that do not exist. They were created by a human being. But that doesn't mean that all non-natural languages are science fiction languages. We've got languages created with the hope or with the aim of creating like a universal language for the whole world, right? You've got plenty of languages like Interlingua, Esperanto. One of those is Esperanto. Along with Interlingua is probably the most known one. Esperanto was created by, I think, by a Polyglot. I think he spoke like, I don't know, that guy was amazing. He spoke like 19 or 20 languages during the Second World War. And he thought that if we all could speak the same language, we wouldn't fight. The Second World War wouldn't exist. Why? Because if I can understand you, then there's no reason to fight. So what he did was he took the easiest part of every language he knew, the easiest part of Chinese, the easiest part of English, the easiest part of Spanish, the easiest part of whatever, and he created Esperanto. The word Esperanto itself means the one who hopes, because the language is like a hope of peace in the world, no more fights, etc, etc. So Esperanto, as I was saying, is very easy to learn. It took me less than 6 months to go from an A1 to a B1 because it's quite easy. We don't have conjugations, we don't have masculine and feminine, we don't have singular plural. It's very easy. So I think in just 2 months I'm gonna get to my C1 level, from B1 to C1. I don't think I'm gonna have that much problem. My work plan is going to be 1 hour, 3 days per week. The same work plan as Italian, because it's an easier language, but it's half of the time. Instead of 4, it's going to be 2 months, so I cannot reduce that much. And then I'm gonna work 20% on speaking, 20% on fluency, 15% on listening, 15 writing, 15 reading, 15 pronunciation. This, as you can tell, is way more balanced than my Italian. Why? Because I don't have real strength in Esperanto. I don't have weaknesses either. Esperanto is a quite easy language. My listening is good, my reading is good, my speaking is good, my fluency is good, it's quite there. So I wanted to give it like a balance to all the things. My ultimate goal with Esperanto is to get the C1 level before attending the Polyglot gathering that will be held in was it Teresin? I'm gonna check that out. Just 1 second. Okay, that's it. The Polyglot gathering will be held in Teresin, Poland on the 14th of June, from the 14th to the 19th. I don't know if you know the Polyglot gathering. Polyglot gathering is one of the most famous, not the only one, but one of the most famous gatherings for polyglots. It's like the Comic Con for people who like comics, but the same for polyglots, people who love languages. So my goal, as I said, is getting that C1 of Esperanto before the Polyglots gathering in Poland, so I can go there and really have that C1 level in Esperanto. I will find Esperanto speakers in the Polyglot gathering for sure. So hopefully I will really feel comfortable with Esperanto when I go there. And finally, my French. Honestly, this is a huge disclaimer. I don't think I'm gonna get that goal done. I mean, I'm not going to achieve my B1 in French before December. Why? Because with French, I've got a huge fight. I love it and I hate it at the same level. I mean, I love French because I was working in France for a long time. I've been living in France. I've got one of my best friends. It's a culture that I'm related to, and I really want to learn the language. On the other hand, there's several things that make me hate the language, and this is not politically correct. People is going to hate me for this, but hey, this is a personal video, so there you go. First, French people. I'm sorry guys, if any of you is French, I don't have anything against all French people, okay? I've got beautiful French students, I've got incredible French friends, but usually the way that French people are, so in order to justify myself, because I want you to think that I hate French people just because, I'm gonna tell you a short story about what happened to me on my first day of work back in 2015 when I was working in France. I was super naive. I don't know, I was 20 something, 24 I think. I was super naive. I didn't speak any French, but I was living in France. Wow. So what I did was I started playing Duolingo and I learned the basics. Bonjour, bonsoir, ça va, etc. So I went to my work and I was like with my tiny bag there, super smiley, and I went through the door person there, the first person you find on your job when you go to your job, and I was like, bonjour, and I kept walking. And then the French person shouted at me. He was like, oh, where'd you go? I was like, quoi? And he was like, but shouting very angry to me, bonjour. And I was like, okay, he said something about bonjour. So I was like, bonjour. And he was like, and he understood that I did not speak French. So he talked to me in English and he said, we don't say bonjour, we say bonjour. And I was like, crap, he's correcting my freaking French. It's the very first day of working here in France. You can tell that I'm not French. You can tell that I don't speak French. I've been doing my best. Before even I need to speak, I tried my best to get the basics, and I said in your native language, bonjour, and you're freaking correcting my bonjour? What is wrong with you, French people? And of course, that's not the only story. I was working in Paris for 9 months, and I've got plenty of stories to tell. We all know this, French people, some French people is not the most friendly, nice people in the world. So my work plan is going to be way stronger. I'm gonna work 1 hour, 5 days per week. That's 5 hours per week. That's almost double than I'm going to do with my Italian and Esperanto. The percentage that I'm gonna use is the one that I used for English when I was learning English, Italian when I started learning Italian, which is the for me are the most balanced percentages that we can use, which is 25 for listening, 25 for writing, 20% for reading, 15% for speaking, 10 for pronunciation, and 5 for fluency. That is what I did when I started learning English, and it was quite well. That's what I did with my Italian, and it went quite well, and now I'm gonna do it with my French, and I hope that it will be good as well. Honestly, I don't rule out to take classes on italki with a French tutor. I never do that. As you know, I have self-learned my own languages. I don't rely on teachers to learn a language. I think that teachers, such as myself, we are a great resource to support our learning language learning journey. I said that in reverse. So I'm gonna say that again. I think that teachers are a great support for our language learning journey. Me, as a teacher, I never tell my students, take classes with me. If you're not with me, you will never learn. So I've been taking some lessons in Italian, in English, in Esperanto whenever I needed some extra help, things that I did not understand, things that I could not learn by myself because explanations on YouTube or Google were horrible. So I got a teacher for that specific purpose, and then that's it. For French, honestly, I don't rule out to take classes, regular classes I mean, just at least to get the motivation, at least to have that motivation of having someone you need to talk to, right? And knowing that Mondays, Wednesdays and Fridays, at that time you've got French session with whoever. That external motivation, I don't really need it because usually I am motivated to learn languages, and if not, I find my own way to motivate myself. But with French it's difficult. So I'm not going to do it, but maybe I'm gonna end up doing it. And that's it, pandas. That's everything about my language goals. Hopefully at the end of this year, I will be able to say that I speak 6 languages with French on it. That's all for now. Thank you very much. Ciao, pandas!